Hello, welcome to the shop. Today, I'm going to show you how to properly install the D-Spec Power Package on your 2024 and up KTM 500 EXC-F Dual Sport version. Let's do it. Thank you for purchasing the power package for your KTM 500 EXC-F. Here are the instructions to guide you through the installation. First, place the bike on a suitable stand. We'll start by removing the seat and the gas tank. Remove the screw at the center of the tank. Then, unscrew the 4 screws holding the radiator plastics. Now, disconnect the fuel supply hose. Plugs are provided with the motorcycle's tool kit to protect the tank opening as well as the throttle body hose. Next, disconnect the fuel pump, carefully lifting the tab that holds the connector in place. The tank can now be removed from the bike by spreading the front plastics apart and pulling backwards. Once the tank is removed, we can work on the exhaust. First, remove the springs using a spring hook. There are 2 at the front holding the head pipe and 1 in the center holding the silencer. The O2 sensor wiring is attached to the frame. Cut the zip tie carefully, being mindful of the wiring. You will now have access to the sensor connector. Disconnect it by lifting the retention tab. You can also remove the sensor from the head pipe while it's still attached to the bike. Wiggle the head pipe out to remove it from the bike. We will also remove the right engine support to install one of the components of the D-Smug kit. Next, remove the air filter cover, the air filter, and the intake boot clamp. There is a slot for a flat screwdriver, but I prefer to use a 6mm socket. Then, disconnect the engine breather hose. After separating the rear part of the boot, you can remove it from the throttle body. Inside the original boot are the reed valves, which already have been removed by the customer. Since the bike is already very lean, removing them without tuning worsens the lean condition. The boot provided improves airflow thanks to the integrated velocity stack. Next, we remove the clip from the connector on the canister. The D-Smug kit includes a plug for this connector. Now, remove the canister from its support and the associated hoses. The hoses lead to a recovery tank located in the front tube of the frame and to a threaded fitting on the right side of the engine cylinder head. To easier disconnect the hose from the fitting, I use pliers to turn and pull. The recovery reservoir is no longer useful and can also be removed by unscrewing the fittings and pulling downwards. Removing it might damage it, so we provide plugs for the 3 fittings if you wish to leave it in place as shown in this video. The last section of hoses can now be removed. It carries fuel vapors. Finally, remove the cap on the right side of the frame where the new vent hose support will connect, just like on the SX-F and SX off-road models. Remove the fitting on the right side of the engine head. A plug is included in the D-Spec kit. Finally, remove the original ECU. First, lift its rubber mount and slide the connector cover over the wiring loop. Carefully lift the front tab before pulling the case. Slide the case out of the rubber mount. The mount will be reused. Now that all unnecessary hardware is removed, we can start installing the kit. Next, install the provided plug in the original head pipe. If you are using our Stage 2 power package with Outerwears exhaust, you won't need this plug. Now, let's move to the intake side. Use the original clamp positioning it downward on the supplied air boot. Notice the groove behind the air filter seat. This is where the front panel of the airbox will go. First, install the front of the air boot onto the throttle body. Then, ensure the plastic is properly inserted into the groove of the air boot all around. You can lift the air filter seat to make sure the plastic part is well inserted into the groove all around the air boot. Once the air boot is securely in place on both the airbox and throttle body, tighten the clamp. Reconnect the engine breather hose at the top of the air boot. First, insert the rubber hose in the air boot and then secure it with the clip, just like on the stock one. Place the outerwear pre-filter over it. Besides providing additional dust protection, it is water resistant. Moreover, it has almost no restrictions. Now we can proceed to the electronic part of the installation. The ECU is already programmed with the two maps. As you can see on top, there's a barometric pressure sensor integrated into the GET ECU. We will mark the position of our support relative to the sensor. Then, carefully cut an opening using scissors. Some ECU brands rely on calculations based on the map sensor. The GET system is more precise when changing altitude and temperature. You can now slide the ECU back into the rubber, and as you can see, the sensor is right under the window we cut. Reinstall the ECU, making sure the connector clicks securely, and then put the bracket back on top of the subframe. Next, install the SX1 controller or the map switch at a convenient location on the handlebars. Since the light and orange switches take up a lot of space on the handlebar, options are limited. I choose to install it on the left side of the handlebar. You may need to relocate other controls to fit it as desired. Once the map switch is installed, partially unscrew the two bolts above the headlight bracket and remove it from its mount to ease the next step. The Y cable will connect the ECU to the SX1 controller and the SX1 Wi-Fi module. First, connect the Y cable to the ECU. The ECU label on the cable indicates the part that must be inserted into the ECU's main connector. It's straightforward since all connectors are different. I will remove the rubber cap, which is only needed if not using the GET accessories. Route the cable along the motorcycle's main wiring harness. Make sure to pass it through a protected area where it won't catch or pinch. Follow the clutch line upwards. Connect the map switch to the Y cable. Ensure the wires are neatly tucked behind the headlight and check that no interference occurs when turning the handlebars. Now, install the SX1 module. The password is printed on the sticker on the module, and an identical sticker is included with the case. I usually stick it on the GET packaging to keep it handy in case it gets lost in the bike. You can also take a photo to save. Insert the connector from the module onto the Y cable routed to the rear of the bike. Tuck it under the large ECU connector. Again, verify the routing by turning the handlebars left and right to ensure no tension or pulling on the cables. Once everything is properly placed, secure the installation with zip ties. Reinstall the headlight assembly. Make sure to not over-tighten the two top screws. Then, reinstall the gas tank. Be sure the tank isn't pressing on any of the added wires when tightening the middle bolt. Reinstall the 4 front screws. The longest one secures the horn. Next, install the support for the vent tube, similar to the SX-F models. Use one of the hoses from the previous system, cut to the correct length before inserting it here. The installation is almost complete. The last step is to set the TPS. You will locate the red screw on the top of the throttle body. First, loosen the red screw until no more resistance is felt. Do not fully remove it. Follow the instructions in the GET manual. You can use the reset TPS cable or the WeGet app via the SX1 Connect module to properly set the TPS. Then, retighten the red screw until the idle speed reaches around 1200 to 2000 RPM. The 0 TPS is when the butterfly is fully closed. It is normal that you see your TPS reading between 3 and 4% when your engine will be idling. You can monitor the idle speed in real time via the SX1 Connect. The installation is now complete.